Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here. Back to Mars, back to Gale Crater. And we're looking at this image from Sol 1033. So this was taken years ago by the Curiosity Rover as it drove through the mysterious mounds on Mars in this area. And this is just such a mound. And the object we're looking at is just here. So you can download this from the link below in the description. And I will also have links to this Gigapan by Zelenykot, which is actually quite nice. And it gives you an idea of size of this, of the general object here, which is right down in the corner here. And you've got this mysterious mound. And now I found a lot of these things in this area and nearby. And this one, I'll give credit where credit is due straight away before I go any further. This thing was found by Sarah Runcie. And it was posted on Mars Moon Space Facebook group on March the 16th at 10:11 p.m. Okay, and that, as far as I know, that was the first time it was posted anywhere. So she gets the credit for this, and she's actually done quite a nice clip of it here. It's not a great quality image to work with. You've got to do some careful adjustments to it to get the best detail from it. But this isn't bad. It gives you a pretty good idea of what you're looking at. It looks like a mummified head. Initially, I thought this was a statue, perhaps like a part of a statue that's broken off or buried, and we're just seeing the head sticking up. But when I enhanced it, I started to think differently. So full credit to Sarah Runcie. She's a great researcher actually, and has found many similar things on Mars, and often posts them on our pages, like on my my page here, which is Mars Magazine, ArtAlienTV Mars Magazine, and there's many similar things I have found here. Let's get into the folder and have a look at it. I'm trying not to take too long here. My videos have been getting too long recently. I'll show you a raw clip first. Here we have it. It doesn't look very clear. It's fuzzy, out of focus, and very muddy. So the way to get around that is to increase the contrast and color correct it like I've done here. Now here's the raw clip in the corner, and here's the enhanced clip in the middle. And there's the credit to Sarah Runcie. I should put the date under there as well, really. I may do that. And what can I say? You have here what looks like a mummified head with a rather strange object sticking in it, or sticking out of it here. You've got quite clear nose and eye detail. Eyes are shut. Quite a defined eyebrow there, quite a defined nose, a very defined upper lip which looks kind of distorted. Some obvious beard growth here coming right round. You can just about make out an ear, although it's hard to see. It's in quite heavy shadow, the way the light's hitting this. So we're seeing the light come from the top left, coming across this way at an angle. So this is largely in shadow. And you can see that this is hair. This is not a carving, as I initially thought. It's hair, because it's got that kind of fuzzy, out of focus kind of look to it. And in fact, what's very odd about this, which I've not seen before on any of the mummies or skulls so much, is that the hair looks like it's been tightly pulled round and clipped with this object here, like a hair clip. Now I could be wrong here, so if you've got any ideas about that, please leave a comment below. Very interesting detail here. You've got the hair kind of, it's almost like it's been pulled and combed very tightly and then clipped there with something. I could be wrong. This could be a headdress of some sort that's kind of slightly rotted away or broken or whatever. And this is just the remains of it. I don't know either way, but it's interesting. Not really sure about that, but this to me does look like a mummy. Now I know it's a bit out of focus and the detail isn't brilliant. In fact, it looks better if you go back a bit like this. It kind of sharpens up when you do that. Looks like a mummy. and the size is only 3 or 4 inches, approximately, give or take an inch, I don't know. There's no actual way of telling exactly how big this thing is. Let's look at the Gigapan. Let's see if we can work it out. There's no point of reference on the Gigapan here, which is by Zelenykot. There's no point of reference, so we don't know how big these things are. But in my experience, the rover tends to drive between these mounds, a lot of which I think were burial mounds, or at least partially burial mounds. People were buried in these mounds, okay? And this is right at the bottom here, and it's quite small, and it really is quite small. It's only about 3 inches. I can't zoom in any further, so that is small. Obviously, if it was bigger, it would appear bigger. So there we have it. Now, this got me wondering, because I've found lots of these, as other people have. A lot of people think they're all statues, but I think many of them are actually mummified. And on my page here, I've got a selection of them here. Some of these have appeared on Ancient Aliens when I was on that show a year or two ago, in 2016. And that was one of the ones they showed. Now, I thought this was initially, I thought this was a carving or statue, but I think this one here isn't. I think it's actually a mummy. It's got very odd kind of eye detail here, which looks kind of like a mummified face, and it's quite distorted. You've got this one here, which is also mummified. That's not a carving. This one here is a carving, the yellow one. This one here was photographed by the Opportunity Rover, thousands of miles away from the Curiosity, and has hair and an ear with an earring, a nose, quite prominent teeth, and a small receding chin. There's a skull here. This one here, it looks like a carving and is almost kind of Aztec or Olmec in style. Many of these things look like carvings, like this one here is a carving, as is this one here, which has got an eye with a nose and a mouth here and a very large ear. This almost looks Olmec. So some of these things look like they're from South America, Central or South America. Some of them look more Egyptian, some of them look more kind of South American even, in style. And very odd indeed. There's some amazing similarities. This isn't all of them I've got a lot more of these. This is just a small selection of my favourites here. But a lot of these are really small, only a few inches. This one's only a few inches. This one here is only about 3 or 4 inches. This is quite large, that's about 6 or 7. This is only about 3 or 4 inches from here to here. This one's a bit bigger. That's more like a human size, that's about 6 or 7 or 8 inches, don't know. This is quite large. This is about 11 inches from there to there. So they're all sizes and shapes, and obviously depict different types of people here, okay? This mummy here is very different from this possible carving here in facial features, although has a similar kind of hair thing going on with a kind of mullet kind of style haircut. So yeah, very 70s. So this is a free image. You can go on my page, ArtAlienTV Mars Magazine, and can download this for free if you like. It's a high quality JPEG, high res. So there we have it. I mean, what else can I say about this other than well done to Sarah Runcie? She's found many similar items over the years, and is one of our top researchers. She lives in Oregon in the USA, and is one of our very talented female researchers. There are a few, like Martian and others, and she does a good job. And credit where credit is due, I think. And hopefully this video will do well and give her a bit more coverage that she actually deserves, I think. So that was great by her. Now, I've been looking at human proportions here. Now, of course, this thing on Mars is much smaller. If it's only a few inches, I was trying to work out how tall it was, and if it is roughly human proportions, then we're looking at a person that's only about 2 foot tall, about 20 or 24 inches, maybe somewhere in between 18 inches and 24 inches, which is 2 foot. Now, of course, they may be dwarfs. In other words, they may have more dwarf-like proportions, like Peter Dinklage, the famous guy from Game of Thrones. Okay, I've got a really cool image here of him with some of the other characters who are different sizes, and he's about 4 foot. I don't know his exact height. You could probably look it up on Wikipedia here. It doesn't say here at the top how tall he is, but I'm sure it does somewhere. I mean, he's quite a formidable character in this, and is a very good actor. I'm not trying to demean anyone who's dwarfs here. They're perfectly cool people, I think. And but he's about 4 foot. Now, going by the sort of human proportions we're looking at here, the one on Mars that we're looking at, the bearded man, as I'm calling him, would have this sort of height, about 2 foot, somewhere between this sort of height, because the skull is very small. But I'm assuming that the body proportions are much like ours, which may not be correct or the same. They may be slightly different. So the body may be way smaller in proportion to the body, much like a toddler or a 3-year-old, and not like an adult. So that's one thing that could be argued about, because we haven't got the rest of the body to look at, so we can't really tell. But I'm just assuming that the proportions are similar, because we're looking at a humanoid here, not necessarily a human. But this is small, and it got me wondering, because I have found lots of these, and these heads tend to be just lying on ridge lines, usually at the bottom of a ridge line, and are often just lying there on their own, just sitting there, sticking out of the ground. And some people have said, oh, they're living people and they're looking out of the ground at the rover. No, they're not. These haven't moved, and can often be seen in multiple images, and they've not moved or anything. So I'd say these are mummified, buried people that are buried not in the lying position like we are generally, but sitting up, much like the ancient mummies in Nazca in Peru, who were buried in a sort of shroud in a little pit in the ground, and are buried in the sitting position with some of their artifacts with them and possessions, you know. So and some of these have been found with very large elongated skulls, like we have seen on Mars. I'll put some links at the end of this video to some of the other similar finds that I've found that I've got here, and this one in particular has got a lot of detail. Very, very interesting indeed. I've colorized it there so you can see it better, but even in the raw image you can see these things quite clearly. A lot of them are very clear, and there are many of them. I've lost count now of how many skulls and mummified heads and statues I've found. I've found in the region of about 40 now, and other people have found them as well. So it's not just me. There are lots of researchers out there doing similar work and finding very similar things. Now, if it was just pareidolia or me making this up, then that wouldn't be possible, would it? So there we go. So links to all these images will be in the description as usual. Let's have another quick look at that before we go. I won't put loads of clips of this in at the end, because I've really only done a few. We've got the raw one here and some basic enhancements, and we may as well just look at that now up close and just look at that detail again. I'll go back a little bit so you can focus on it better. There we have it. A clear chin with a beard, whitish hair, quite clear lip detail, a nose, 2 eyes which look kind of shut, an eyebrow there. Either some kind of weird headdress or strange kind of combed and clipped hair coming round the head like that, which is really odd. And you can see all that in the raw image. I haven't done much to this. I'm very, very careful not to add any detail that isn't there. I've only darkened it and brightened it in such a way as that you can see it on, especially on a smaller device like a mobile phone. Okay, so there we have it. Great discovery by Sarah Runcie. Let's see how well this video goes. When I spotted it on Facebook, I was like, wow, that's another one for the collection. So the ArtAlienTV collection of mummies and skulls and statues on Mars is really getting quite comprehensive now, and we can determine from most of these finds that there are at least 3 or possibly 4 races of people on Mars. Some of them were only 1 or 2 feet tall, like this guy, and some were around the 3 foot tall mark. Some were around the 5 foot or 6 foot, and some may be taller. So, judging by all the artifacts we found, a lot of them are about 1/3 of the size of what we have on Earth. Things like tools and stuff that I found, and other people, they're really small. So, there we have it. Size isn't everything, and dwarves, like the guy in Game of Thrones here, can be quite considerable characters, and should not be underestimated. Yeah, so I mean, the one on Mars would only be up to here on him. Quite small indeed, very small. And this guy's about 6 foot. I think he's about 4 foot. This one person here is about 5'6" or something. So, yes, there we have it. What can I say? There's the raw image there. There's the raw clip here, the raw download image. So you can download this and look yourself. I'm not making this up. This is real stuff. There are many, many other examples that are similar, but none of them are quite the same, and they do depict some very different facial characteristics here of different types of people with very, very pronounced facial features, some of them. Some of them look more human, some of them look very less, some of them are carved and stylized like this one, with a sort of weird bevel on the edge of it, this one. This looks like a grave marker, or part of a statue, that one. This is a statue. That's a skull. That's a mummy. That's a statue. That's probably a mummy now, I think. This one I'm not sure, don't know. This is a carving. So yeah, the Olmec is definitely a carving. That's much bigger than the rest. This is about 2 feet tall. It's a big, almost kind of round, big carved head sitting in the ground, or on the ground. So there we have it. What can I say? There are lots of these to compare, and this one, the bearded man, is one of the best. So, as I said before, great find by Sarah Runcie. Thank you very much to her. I spoke to her on Facebook about it, and she's done some great work. So keep an eye out for that. Dwarfs on Mars, a dwarf race of people, possibly more than one type of dwarf race of people on Mars, and some of the people on Mars were human size also, by the looks of it. But most of the finds I've found so far have been in this sort of size, which are around the 2 foot mark, including the what looks like the alien I found the other day that looks like it was run over by the Spirit rover. Okay, so check that out on my channel. It's this one here. I'm getting ridiculed for it, of course, as you would do if you show something that's never been really shown before. People are going crazy about it, and I'm getting heavily trolled. But in this video, I said this possible alien here was probably about 1 foot tall. I've revised that and done some new measurements, and there's actually around the 2 foot mark, about 22 to 24 inches, approximately. Okay, so because there's an actual rover track going right over it, and you can measure it from that. So that I've revised the size of that. So that's another 2 foot Martian here, but this is obviously a much younger person, but has similar proportions, although has a much larger elongated egg-shaped head. Okay, so check that out, and well, yeah, I mean, this is getting complicated now, and you can see this. There will be a link to this video at the end as well, the Gods of Mars Part 2. Most of these are statues, but some of them may well be mummies, like this one here, like I said. But they kind of look like they turned to stone, some of them, which is rather odd. So there's a process going on here that we don't quite understand with the preservation, probably due to the fact that there's much less oxygen on Mars, almost none apparently, and very little moisture. So these would preserve probably for many thousands of years longer than they would on Earth. and there's quite a high sulfur and saline content in the soil, apparently, which would also act as a preservative. So there we have it. Thanks for watching, everybody. That went on too long. I'm sorry about that, but you cannot explain these complex issues in a sort of 5-minute video. You've got to kind of think out loud and work through the obvious factors involved, and it's not easy to do that, and I do get a bit tongue-tied sometimes. I apologise about that. But there we have it. Let's have another quick look at that for the last time, up close. What do you think? Is this some kind of hair? Is it a headdress? Is it a carving? I don't think it is, but it could be. But it looks far too fine here, this hair-like structure here, for that to be carved. So there we have it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please give the thumbs up and share it on social media if you can. I will see you soon.